Hi, and welcome back to Beantalk. Today we want to talk a little bit about standard recipes on the espresso machine. So for this, today we're working on a Faima President. I just want to show you what the different recipes are and the drinks and the differences, of course. So first off, I'd like to start with a simple espresso, which is actually just the base of all the other drinks. So we're gonna use our double portafilter. If you have a single one, just leave it somewhere, get rid of it, you don't need it. We always want to use one with double spouts. And there are different philosophies about the espresso. Of course, the espresso originating in Italy, they have their own opinion about it. And usually in Italy, they use about 14 grams for a double espresso. So like I said, we put in 20 grams of coffee and the output should be somewhere between 20 to 25 milliliters. So ideally you use like a 1:2 ratio from coffee to water. But if you want to learn more about that, you can watch our video about coffee extraction. Yeah, so it's 26 seconds, which is almost perfect for the espresso, which should run about 25 seconds. So yeah. So first drink, the espresso. Okay, for our second drink, we're gonna make a doppio, or just double espresso. I mean, of course, it's basically the same as a single espresso, just double the dose. So in this case, we use a large cup. So again, obviously, since the single espresso is 20 to 25 milliliters, the double espresso should be 40 to 50 milliliters. So this is our double espresso. There you go. Our next drink is something many people here in Austria, for example, like to drink. So whatever you want to call it, Verlängerter, Americano, or Long Black, it's pretty much the same. But once again, you need an espresso for it. And you can make it in two different ways. So, I mean, you can also make it wrong, which would be just to set your grinder super coarse and try to fill up the whole cup with a little amount of coffee, but it's not gonna taste good. It's not good for your stomach because there's a whole lot of bitterness in there. And yeah, so what we're gonna do is we take a cup, fill it up with about 100 milliliters of water. In this case from the tea water dispenser here. And then pour the espresso on top. So this also looks far nicer because you get a nice crema on top. And tastes so much better compared to using a wrong grind setting. So this is your Americano or Verlängerter. And also if you want to serve it like super nice, what you can do is you just take a little kettle like this one. And serve it together with an espresso in a large cup. And so the customer can dilute it himself. Okay, so that's it for our black coffees in this case. Now we want to do our milk-based drinks. So again, we're gonna start with an espresso. So now I want to start with the probably most popular coffee with milk, which is the cappuccino. So, which might be interesting to know is that they're not quite sure whether the cappuccino originated in Italy or in Austria. Because before the cappuccino there was the cappuccino in Vienna, which was pretty much the same as the cappuccino, And cappuccino is kind of monk because the brown color of the coffee with milk reminded the people of the cloak of the monk. Obviously we're gonna need some milk. Cappuccino is, by Italian standard, 1 espresso with about 100 milliliters of foamed milk. So the temperature of the milk should be about 60 to 65 degrees Celsius. And if you wonder how should you know what this temperature is, luckily enough it's the perfect temperature for measuring pain of the heat on your hand. So once you think in your hand, it's getting too hot, you should stop foaming. Then it should be pretty much perfect. And of course, everyone loves some good latte art on their cappuccino. That's your cappuccino. Okay, so another milk-based drink, which has gotten very popular over the last few years, also here in Europe, is the flat white. It's not quite clear what the flat white is or who invented it. The Australians and the people from New Zealand, they argue who first invented it. And depending on where you go, New Zealand, Australia, East Coast or West Coast, it's either with a double ristretto, double espresso, or with a single espresso. But what most of them do, compared to the cappuccino, is poured into a glass rather than a cup. So I'm gonna do what most people here would serve as a flat white, which is basically a double espresso with steamed milk. Also, if you want to be super strict about the foamed milk, the cappuccino shouldn't have quite as fine of a milk foam as the flat white. That's why it's called flat white. So supposedly the milk is thinner with the flat white compared to the cappuccino, because, you know, Australia used to being a British colony. They didn't have too much coffee or drank too much coffee, but rather tea. And with tea they would use just warm or hot milk rather than foamed. So once they started drinking coffee, they would use the rather thin foamed milk that they were used to from the tea. There you go, that's your flat white. So of course there's some people that like less milk or more milk. And for that reason, there's also the Espresso Macchiato, which is basically just an espresso 1-to-1 with milk, or the Caffè Latte, which is a whole lot of milk. Worth noticing, for the milk at least, is that the best milk, taste-wise and also for foaming, is just regular whole milk or fresh milk. So if you have 2 drinks and one is with more milk, I think there's definitely more milk in a Caffè Latte than a Macchiato. You want to pour the one first with the most milk, just because it's gonna stay warm the longest. So now this is basically most of the coffee drinks you drink in a coffee shop. So of course number 1 being the cappuccino. Then we have our flat white, which mostly is about the same amount of milk, but with a double espresso. Then we have, for people that like their coffee with a lot of milk, the Caffè Latte, which usually is like a volume of about 300 milliliters. So there's really a whole lot of milk in there. And then our Espresso Macchiato, which is just a tiny bit of milk Yeah. So that's it from our espresso-based drinks. I hope now you have a little understanding of how to prepare the drink and what it is. And yeah, like every week, drink loads of good coffee and see you next week. Bye!